Seventh Son is supposed to be based off of a series of books and was turned into a movie that was supposed to come out in 2013. That didn't work out. 2014, that didn't work out, and now 2015 it has been released, but that doesn't mean that it's worked out. Now, I personally am not into this type of genre, but that doesn't mean that I'll go into it with a bias. I'll still go into it and hope to be entertained and see the good points to it. However, if there are points that are still bad in the acting, story, and the effects, then you can't really just overlook that, and this movie definitely has those things not going for it. Because one of the main strong points for these films are supposed to be the effects, since it's all these mystical creatures and things. However, not only do they look bad, but when you do a little bit of research, you'll realize all of the trouble that they had with it, with the effects company being going bankrupt, and then having to, do something completely new. And it honestly feels like they're not even rendered completely, and it shows you why they're bad. So it's not a personal opinion or the way that you look at it. Literally, they had trouble with finishing up the effects, and they just don't look good. And that is really one of the weakest points of the movie, which it needs to be one of the strongest points, so it really affects it negatively. On top of that, the story is something that we've really seen before. Now, of course, I haven't read the books, so maybe if you've read the books, maybe it does it justice, maybe it doesn't, or maybe there's more to the books than what we see on screen. But this whole apprentice thing that he has to go, and become the apprentice with these mystical powers and things like that, is something that we've seen before, and this movie doesn't do it well. I mean, you have the point in the story where it's supposed to be the generic build-up, but it happens so late, and then it just cuts it off as if it's like, oh no, you're gonna wait for a sequel. It's like, no, we didn't even want this movie. On top of that, you're not gonna be able to make a sequel, so why just cut it off like that? Then at the same time, you have the acting, which isn't really that memorable, with the main guy who sure he was Prince Caspian, but here he does nothing that's really going to stick with you. And the same thing goes with Jeff Bridges, who even when he's in projects that he's supposed to be very passionate about, like The Giver, he was working to make that film come out for over a decade, and then in the movie, sure, it's supposed to be his role where he's sort of just there, but I mean, we've seen him do that consistently with True Grit, and now with this, and where it seems like I'm just here for my paycheck. The only person being Julianne Moore, who actually seems like she's going in there and being over the top crazy, is Julianne Moore. And the thing is that it's so ironic because it's such a cartoony, obviously not great role, and this has come out, and then in a couple of weeks, she will probably win an Oscar for an actual good role, so the irony is definitely there. Pretty much what the movie comes down to is that if you had Hansel and Gretel or Jack the Giant Slayer, it's better to pick those movies than actually go see this movie, because that's how just unoriginal and bland this movie is. It's sort of like the Sci-Fi Channel had this idea to make this generic movie, but for whatever reason, they actually got some pretty decent actors, so then they're like, well, we can't go straight to DVD or the channel, it needs to be out there, right? So they tried in 2013, it didn't work, 2014, and now in 2015, and it's just they never really knew what to do with this movie. However, if you read the books, I am curious what you felt about the adaptation, if it adapted it well, if you thought that there was more to the books, or if you thought the books were bland as well. If you went into this movie, you completely hated it, or if you went into this movie and actually liked it, not knowing anything before it. We can talk about it down below, and other than that, just pretty much wish that these first 2 months in January and February are completely done so we can get to the good stuff, but until then, I'll see you guys later.